Our printer woke at 1:03. It spit out room 1407 breakfast for two. At 1:03 a.m. the printer woke itself like a guilty conscience and coughed a single page onto the rug. It wasn't the usual half-smudged grocery list or an invoice I'd meant to file. It was a hotel receipt, long, glossy, precise. Arcadian Hotel. Room 1407. 2 cappuccinos, 1 grapefruit brioche extra butter, breakfast for two, in a font that enjoys being looked at. Below, a line with the kind of flourish numbers learn at expensive restaurants. Service charge included. The name on the folio wasn't mine. It wasn't hers either. Guest of R. Collins. The apartment has its own weather. The page changed the pressure. In the bedroom, Ivy breathed with the soft, almost whistle she makes when she's exhausted and pretending not to be. We argued about a lamp, the way it throws a jealous shadow, and then performed civility until we fell asleep in parallel. I picked up the paper like it might bite and read it again in the kitchen, because truth always looks better next to lemons. We never connected the printer to our phone numbers. It lives on the Wi-Fi like a stray, answering to any device that knows how to knock gently. Anyone who had emailed us in better hours could have sent this page into our night. I looked at the footer. Print from guest portal. No IP, no names, just confidence. I did the thing I do when panic tries to dress like competence. Texted Mara. Printer spit out an Arcadian receipt, I wrote. 1:03 a.m. breakfast for two. His initial on the folio. Her reply arrived like a coat thrown over my shoulders. Put it on the table. Light 1 lamp. Decide if you want bread or sugar. We've had this conversation before. Spectacle is sugar. Hotel carpets, speeches in elevators, a crowd of no one applauding. Bread is intimacy, 1 room, 1 sentence you can live inside in the morning. I responded, bread. Then I set the page on the table, turned on the lamp that makes our kitchen kind to people, and waited with my hands flat as if the wood could read. At 1:21 the printer coughed again. A second page. Same header, same neat decadence, time-stamped 8:06 a.m. the morning before. It was a revised bill. Under room 1407, adjustment 1 cappuccino removed. Under notes, sorry, she doesn't drink coffee. Beneath, a doodle worked into the signature line, a heart so small it could pass as a flourish, made by a pen trying to appear grown-up. There is a version where I go to the Arcadian and ask the night clerk to produce morality with a thin smile. There is a version where I tear the paper into confetti and declare a holiday. I chose a third that tasted less dramatic and more survivable. I took the 2 pages and slid them under the magnet shaped like a whale on the front of the fridge. The whale held them without judgment. The house shifted its weight and listened. Ivy came into the kitchen at 1:37 wearing the apology t-shirt, the one so soft it convinces the room on her behalf. Her hair was a translation of the day, half pinned, half free. She took in the lamp, the printer, the fridge, my face. You printed proof of who we are, she asked quietly, and then she saw the header. Oh, she said, not a confession, not a denial, a word that wanted to be a path. The printer printed for you, I said. It has generous instincts. She walked to the fridge like the page might require her to show ID. She read it once with her lips pressed together. Again with her mouth a careful line. She reached up, touched the whale's tail, and let the pages fall to the table like children who have been behaving too well. He booked a room, she said. He asked me to meet him. He sent the receipt to my email as if attaching evidence was a chivalry. He wanted me to feel invited to a moral certainty. He loves that genre. I did not go. Breakfast for two, I said. I hated how small my voice sounded and loved that it still worked. He booked for two because he thinks inevitability is a virtue, she said. He thinks everything becomes love if you pay the service charge. Whose heart? I asked, fingertip on the tiny flourish. Whose pen? He carries pens that want to be fathers, she said, a grim little smile. The heart is his, mine draws squares. There's a moment when you can audition for rage and another when you can choose a sentence. Do you want a scene? I asked. Or do you want accuracy? Accuracy, she said, and then with the plainness that makes me keep choosing her, I wanted to go. The house didn't flinch. The lemons kept being yellow. I waited for the second clause. I wanted to go to the lobby and sit and see if my body knew how to tell me the truth without rehearsing a speech, she said. I stood outside under the awning and watched a man in navy check his watch and rehearse regret while he practiced sincerity in the reflection. I texted him that I wouldn't come upstairs. He said breakfast was already ordered. I told him to drink both cappuccinos. He said I've learned coffee tastes better when someone else wants it. I turned my phone face down because I remembered that not all lines belong in my mouth. You did. I let the old liturgy trail off because its grammar tired me. I didn't, she said. And I did. I wanted to be wanted in an expensive way, and then I wanted you more. I came home and argued about a lamp because lamps are easier to fix than righteousness. We stood in our kitchen with laminated sin and bad design between us. He printed this at 103, I said. He wanted it to reach our house at the hour houses doubt themselves. She looked up at me with the expression she reserves for sentences that try to walk in without wiping their feet. I want to show you something first, she said. Not evidence, not a receipt, a decision. She stepped into me and put my hand at her throat, not in performance, in grammar. This is where my pulse is. This is where I say yes. Ask me to stay, she said, and answer yourself. Stay, I said. Stay and be watched by a person who doesn't need a lobby. We didn't go to bed to erase paper. We went because bodies remember, maps rooms forget. She stood in front of me and I lifted the hem of her dress, slow as faith. The fabric made that small, faithful sigh it always makes when it agrees to stop pretending to be architecture. Eroticism, the version we trust, is specific. She guided my palm to her hip and pressed until my hand understood the word stay. I put my mouth at the hinge of her jaw, the soft place where certainty breathes, and she said my name in the version that means keep. We spoke our short vocabulary here, slower, more, and answered with breath. We laughed once because the sleeve decided to audition for mime and she rescued me with her teeth. He'd arrived like tide on a calendar, expected, still astonishing. When we came apart together, it felt less like triumph and more like signing a document we had written ourselves. After, the ceiling remembered how to be a ceiling. Ivy lay with her cheek on my chest and traced a small circle over the spot where my worst ideas nap. I'm not pure, she said. I didn't order it, I said. I ordered you. I wanted to be admired by a bad idea, she said. Just for a minute, like a museum piece. Then I wanted to be kept by a kitchen. I'm tired of rehearsing endings in rooms that clap. We need rules again, I said, because ritual is the only thing that calms my breath. Tools, not bars. She smiled into my skin. 1. No breakfast for 2 if one of us didn't make the coffee. If someone wants me at a table, they can eat alone. 2, I said. If an invitation arrives while the city is pretending to be a good idea, we tell the room it tried to borrow before we answer. 3, she said. Novelty is a chore. On your weeks you pick the wrong hour for the right thing. On mine I move the furniture until the light has to remember us. 4, I said. When either of us misses being the emergency in the wrong story, we say it out loud and then do 3 stupid, ordinary things until the wanting behaves. peel oranges over the sink, play one song to the end before anything important, kiss in the doorway. We did them because midnight is feral and likes to be given a job. We peeled oranges. The room forgave us. We played the song that knows the difference between apology and penance. We stood in the doorway and kissed until the apartment decided to be proud of us. In the morning, I sent the printer back to factory settings like an exorcism. I wrote a filter that sent anything from any Arcadian asterisk cat to a folder named Museum, a place for receipts we can visit when we want to remember we don't live there. I texted Mara a photograph of the whale magnet holding nothing. She sent back a picture of a marquee, LISTNING, WATCHING, and then a heart with no period, which is her way of saying continue. At lunch, I took the long way past the Arcadian. A man in navy stood outside practicing a smile meant to be seen from across rooms. He spotted me and put on his human face. "You're lucky," he said, "because men like him don't know how to stop making other men's lives a referendum." "I know," I said. "I trained for it." "If you ever get bored of being decent," he said, "we make a persuasive brioche." "I prefer toast from a kitchen with bad lighting," I said, and kept walking. He doesn't like people's backs. I went a loom because victory tastes better named. Anna slid me a cookie I pretended to refuse and then accepted like a sacrament. "Bread," she said, tapping the counter. Mara waved from the corner like a lighthouse. The cafe smelled like orange peel and competence. Sometimes the printer still huffs a test page at odd hours. Sometimes the calendar tries to be helpful with focus, 2-3 a.m., as if attention were a volunteer. Sometimes the TV autoplays other lives when we're trying to have ours. We put the object that hurt us on the table, turn on one lamp, and ask for one sentence we can live inside. We give each other the kinds of answers you can sleep on. On Thursdays, we move the couch 2 inches and watch the light forget and remember us. On Sundays, we play one song to the end before anything important because attention is the muscle we want to show off. On the Wednesday we were worst at, we stood in the doorway and practiced kissing like accuracy, not spectacle. The dog, a patient critic, sighed like he finally liked the show. Last night at 1:03 again, time loves its own jokes. The printer flickered and I felt my chest prepare to be athletic. It spat a single line onto the rug, a test page with black blocks and a note I must have typed in some past fit of preventative magic and forgotten. Room 0. Lights on. 2 people. It looked stupid on paper. It looked perfect on us. Ivy read it, laughed in that shoulder way, kissed me in the mouth like a mandate and said, "I'll bring the oranges." And I said, "I'll steal the toast." And somewhere in the building the pipes applauded. The whale magnet held nothing except our sense of humor. Breakfast tasted like we paid for it with a decision we can keep making. We are not pure. We are specific. We live with a printer that sometimes thinks it's a prophet and a kitchen that knows better. When someone else orders breakfast for 2, we put on the lamp and choose the room where the coffee is mediocre and the conversation is our own. And every time the city asks if we're bored, we answer with inventory. Lemons, bread, a rule or 2, and the skill of keeping our mouths small enough for accuracy and big enough for love.